그래서 한시바삐 이 팬데믹과 전쟁이 사라지고 인류의 모든 국경이 모든 길이 활짝 열리기를 정말 기도하고 있습니다.
In our headlines on this Thursday, July 24th, here in South Korea, Seoul's planned 2+2 trade meeting with Washington, initially scheduled for Friday, was cancelled by the Trump administration about 1 hour before the South Korean delegation's departure on this Thursday. Meanwhile, the Bank of Korea says the country's real gross domestic product rebounded 0.6% on quarter in the second quarter, higher than widespread market expectations. And heat wave warnings have been issued in many parts of the country, including here in capital Seoul, with the mercury set to surge to 38 degrees Celsius this coming weekend. High-level trade talks between officials here and their American counterparts under the 2+2 framework scheduled for this coming Friday in the U.S. have been cancelled. Our Park Gun-woo has the latest.
Just about an hour before departing for the U.S. on Thursday, Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul was notified that the 2+2 high-level meeting had been cancelled. The meeting originally scheduled for Friday was to have been between Minister Koo and Chief Free Trade Negotiator Yeo Han-gu and their U.S. counterparts, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. According to the Finance Ministry, the cancellation was due to Bessent's urgent schedule, though no specific details from the U.S. were disclosed. The ministry also said the U.S. proposed rescheduling the meeting for the near future, and both sides will now work to set a new date as soon as possible. Industry Minister Kim Jong-un's 2 days of meetings with Trump administration figures, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Energy Secretary Chris Wright, are set to proceed as scheduled from today. That comes following the U.S. reaching a deal with Japan to lower tariff rates from 25% to 15%. On questions about the deal between the U.S. and Japan, Minister Kim said it was too early to make any judgments.
We're carefully examining the U.S.-Japan deal to determine how we should respond. Some elements we can refer to, while others need more of a comparison.
Speaking on Trump's latest remarks, warning that countries unwilling to open their markets won't see any tariff relief, Kim said this has been Trump's consistent stance, and the government has been closely monitoring the situation. He said his visit can be described as a full-court press, aiming not only for tariff cuts, but also to bolster cooperation in key strategic sectors, such as manufacturing and energy. With Trump's deadline for reciprocal tariffs approaching, South Korea is entering the final stages of negotiations with Washington to possibly achieve a breakthrough. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
And the U.S. president says U.S. trade partners will need to open up their markets to American imports if they hope to see lower tariffs. Our Lee Seung-jae covers his remarks.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday pressed trading partners to open their markets in order to avoid much higher tariffs from the U.S. The U.S. leader made the remarks in a social media post, stressing that Washington will only lower tariffs if a country agrees to open its market, adding that those that fail to do so will be met with much higher tariffs. Trump also said through such agreements, U.S. businesses will boom. The latest remarks put pressure on South Korea and other countries to find ways to open their markets in exchange for the reduced tariff Trump unveiled in April. Seoul has been pushing to avoid the proposed 25% reciprocal tariffs, as well as sector-specific tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automobiles that would be a major blow to its export-reliant economy. Meanwhile, in touting the recent trade deal made with Japan, which lowers its tariff rate to 15%, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said the $500 billion investment from Japan in exchange for the lowered rate will give the U.S. the ability to choose where it will be invested. In an example, Lutnick says if Trump decides to create more antibiotics in the U.S., Japan will fund the project and give it to a U.S. business that will operate the project, while 90% of the profits will go to the American taxpayer and 10% to Japan. The White House said Wednesday that the money could be used to invest in key industries.
And these funds will be spent at President Trump's discretion and direction into key industries such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding.
The spokesperson said there are still many more countries that need to strike a deal with the U.S., adding that Washington has sent 25 letters to countries around the world. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And the European Union is reportedly nearing a tariff deal with the Trump administration. According to the Financial Times, a 15% tariff is likely to be levied on the bloc's imports into the American market, as opposed to 30%. The report cites sources who also say the two sides may agree on tariff exemptions for products such as aircraft, distilled spirits, and medical devices. Now, since April, goods from the EU have faced a 10% tariff, on top of the existing average U.S. tariff of 4.8%. Back on the local front, Korea's real gross domestic product for the second quarter rebounded slightly, gaining higher, that is slightly, than market expectations. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers the latest findings.
South Korea's real gross domestic product, a key indicator of the economy, grew by 0.6% on quarter in the second quarter of the year. That's according to the Bank of Korea's preliminary data on Thursday. This is a bounce back, as in the first quarter, the nation's real GDP contracted by 0.2% on quarter, with the previous two quarters also showing stagnant growth. On top of this, the quarter two number exceeded market expectations of a 0.5% gain.
This second quarter GDP can be summed up as strong growth driven largely by the private sector, particularly exports and consumption.
Specifically, private consumption rose 0.5% while government spending increased 1.2%. And although still on a downward trend, the rate of decline for construction and facility investment both stood at negative 1.5%. The BOK zoomed in on the increased spending and that it has been gradually getting better, especially with more spending on entertainment.
We're seeing a gradual improvement. Conditions in May were better than in April, and June was even better than May. In terms of services, ticket sales for performances, for example, saw a significant jump. Restaurant demand and spending, which had been sluggish, also showed signs of recovery.
Meanwhile, both exports and imports saw gains. In the second quarter, exports rose 4.2% from the previous quarter, driven by strong global demand for semiconductors and petrochemical products. Imports were also up by 3.8%. The Bank of Korea noted that improved petrochemical exports were partly due to reduced refining capacity in the U.S. and Europe, which increased demand for Korean petroleum products. Pharmaceutical and cosmetic exports remain strong as well, aided by expanded U.S. and EU import approvals and continued global interest in K-beauty. Officials say some of the recent surge came from pre-tariff demand ahead of looming trade measures, though the actual impact of tariffs has yet to fully materialize. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, SK Hynix appears to have posted its best ever quarterly performance in the second quarter, thanks to surging demand for AI chips, including high bandwidth memory chips. According to preliminary data from the company on this Thursday, its operating profit amounted to around $6.7 billion, up nearly 70% on year. Now, sales also jumped by over 35%. Both operating profits and sales set new all-time quarterly records, breaking the previous highs seen in the last quarter of 2024. In other news, South Korea is seeking to reshape its regulatory landscape for digital assets while its central bank remains cautious. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young explains.
As stablecoins, particularly those backed by the US dollar, are set to rapidly expand globally, major nations are stepping up efforts to institutionalize and regulate these digital assets, including South Korea. To this end, ruling party lawmakers and the Korea Capital Market Institute hosted a key policy forum on Wednesday to discuss integrating stablecoins into the nation's institutional framework.
We are working on the stablecoin bill by establishing a dedicated task force. Through extensive discussions, significant progress has been made in solidifying the direction of the legislation. We anticipate that the bill will be formally introduced sometime next week.
The institutionalization of stablecoins is being pursued as part of President Lee Jae-myung's broader plan to establish South Korea as a digital asset hub. The stablecoin bill is expected to advance based on an authorization system, proposing to raise the minimum capital requirement for stablecoin issuers to at least 5 billion Korean won or $3.7 million US, which is higher than the previous proposal, and to enforce a perpetual one-to-one reserve requirement. Meanwhile, the Bank of Korea has raised concerns over potential side effects.
If one-peg stablecoins are introduced, there could be an issue where their supply creates its own demand from a broad monetary perspective. If stablecoins are issued, the central bank might not intervene when conducting monetary policy, potentially influencing inflation.
While the Financial Services Commission underscored the necessity of establishing legal protection for domestic users of foreign-issued stablecoins, the Finance Ministry emphasized the critical importance of defining their legal classification, citing concerns over their potential misuse for illicit foreign exchange dealings or the embezzlement of export proceeds. Although legislative approaches varied, all participants underscored that a robust legal framework for stablecoins must be established, taking into comprehensive consideration Korean won sovereignty, financial innovation, and stability. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
Heat wave warnings have been issued in many parts of the country, including here in Seoul, with the mercury set to surge to 38 degrees Celsius this coming weekend. Our Pyongyang covers the scorching weather.
Korea is experiencing record-breaking heat, with Seoul expected to climb to 38 degrees Celsius over the weekend. On Thursday, the Korea Meteorological Administration issued heat wave warnings for Seoul and other areas of the country. Additional heat wave advisories have been issued as well. For Seoul, this marks the first heat wave warning issued in 11 days. A heat wave warning is issued when the maximum daily perceived temperature is expected to exceed 35 degrees Celsius for at least 2 consecutive days. And a heat wave advisory is issued when the perceived temperature is expected to exceed 33 degrees. A heat wave alert may also be issued when significant damage is expected due to extreme heat. Korea has recently seen an unusual pattern of heat waves and torrential rains, leading to a surge in heat-related illnesses, widespread flooding, and landslides. This has been caused by a combination of factors.
The reason why this year's heat waves in Korea have been particularly severe is due to the air masses that dominate Korea's summer, namely the North Pacific air mass and the Tibetan air mass.
High sea surface temperatures near the Philippines have intensified the North Pacific high, which expanded northwestward this year due to the lack of descending Arctic air. Additionally, reduced snowfall over the Tibetan Plateau and warmer Indian Ocean waters pushed the Tibetan high further north, increasing its impact on South Korea. The heat is expected to get worse over the next few days.
In densely populated urban areas, the urban heat island effect adds to the heat. So actual temperatures in city centers where we live could approach 40 degrees Celsius.
The Korea Meteorological Administration warns of potential atmospheric instability next week due to interactions between typhoons and other systems, and urges the public to stay updated and respond accordingly. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has called for strong measures to protect migrant workers from mistreatment. At a weekly meeting with top aides on this Thursday, he made reference to an online video showing a Sri Lankan worker bound in plastic wrapping and dragged by a forklift at what appears to be a brick factory in Naju City, Challa, Namdo Province. The president denounced the disturbing incident, calling discrimination and related violence a crime and unforgivable. Accordingly, he urged relevant ministries to look into human rights violations against marginalized groups, including migrants and socially vulnerable, to frame out preventative measures. South Korea appears to be leaving open the possibility of inviting North Korea's Kim Jong-un to this year's APEC meeting. Now, while officials at the Foreign as well as Unification Ministries here stress that no formal discussion is underway, they've also been quick to point out that APEC host nations in the past have extended invitations to non-APEC member leaders. Analysts, for their part, say the simple act of floating such an idea itself signals an openness to cross-border engagement, despite the unlikely chance of North Korea attending the multilateral meeting. Staying with North Korea, Kim Jong-un has doubled down on military readiness while overseeing an artillery drill this past Wednesday, during which he called for a hostile perspective toward enemy forces. This phrase has often been used to refer to South Korea or the US, but on Wednesday he stopped short of naming a country. An official at the Unification Ministry here in Seoul on Thursday downplayed the statement, claiming it appeared to be aimed at internal discipline rather than an external threat. Analysts here believe North Korea may be incorporating real-world combat strategies into its drills, given the regime's dispatch of troops to Russia's war against Ukraine. We are now counting down 99 days to the launch of the APEC leaders meeting in the Korean city of Gyeongju this autumn. That being said, my colleague Oh Soo-young recently sat down with a senior member of the organizing committee for his thoughts on the upcoming meeting and more. Do take a listen.
South Korea is marking the revival of K-democracy and setting the tone to inspire regional cooperation to connect, innovate and prosper amid mounting global complexity. Under the theme of building a sustainable tomorrow, South Korea will host the annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum this October in the historic city of Gyeongju. Leaders from 21 member economies will tackle emerging challenges ranging from artificial intelligence and democratic shifts to sustainable and inclusive growth.
As this year's chair, the Republic of Korea has proposed cooperation on AI and addressing demographic changes as a key initiatives among many other global issues. We are working together with the member economies to adopt these initiatives as a standalone document alongside the Gyeongju Declaration at the leaders' meeting in late October.
South Korea is a far more prominent player than it was when it last hosted APEC about 20 years ago. And what's the significance, in your opinion, on South Korea chairing this year's summit in 2025?
Over the years, Korea has built trust and meaningful contributions in the international community. Building on that, the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, which is returning to Korea after 20 years, will serve as a great opportunity for us to show that we will restore our K-democracy and that Korea is back on track after the political challenges we faced last year. The emblem and the smile of Sheila not only reflect our warmth and hospitality and openness, but also Korea's commitment in fulfilling our role as a responsible member of the international community.
Korea's chairship comes at a pivotal time, showing the country is back on track in global governance after the martial law declaration last December compromised diplomacy at the highest level. Seoul is also positioning itself as a solutions partner, sharing lessons from its own policy tools and technological transformation to help address common regional concerns.
Through this opportunity, we hope to share the experience we've accumulated and offer innovative solutions to help address the challenges faced by the Asia APEC region.
A key aspect of this year's approach is broader public engagement, particularly with the younger generation.
APEC pursues inclusivity and sustainability, but these cannot be achieved without public participation. We are also working to create platforms where young people can take lead in discussing and sharing their visions for the Asia-Pacific region. As part of this effort, MOFA recently held an open call for youth presenters for the public-private dialogue. We even welcomed 16 young people to join our preparatory office as an intern.
Last May, Korea's inclusive approach led to the launch of a Future Prosperity Fund dedicated to youth entrepreneurship, digital skills training, and policy research. Korea committed $1 million in seed funding. As the countdown to October 31st begins, Korea is stepping up outreach with a series of promotional initiatives, including youth-led video campaigns, exhibitions, cultural festivals, and regional media engagement.
With active participation of the public at the core, we will continue to highlight the unique charms of Korea and the host city of Gyeongju, while also carrying out a variety of promotional activities that showcase the APEC vision, the goals and values of the K-APEC, and the outcomes we hope to achieve. Through these efforts, we aim to create a more welcoming and participatory atmosphere leading up to a successful leaders meeting.
Sure, and of course all this build-up of anticipation is extremely important, especially in creating this kind of conducive atmosphere for cooperation. And while we have great expectations for this K-APEC, as you said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time for us today, and see you in Gyeongju.
Thank you.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. The third round of ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul ended swiftly on Wednesday, with no ceasefire reached, but progress was made on additional prisoner exchanges. The two delegations met for approximately 40 minutes at Istanbul's Arirang Palace and discussed further prisoner swaps, but remained far apart on the terms of a ceasefire and a possible meeting of their leaders. Both sides agreed to advance a prisoner of war exchange, committing to release at least 1,200 more POWs each, including severely wounded soldiers and civilians. Russia's chief delegate Vladimir Medinsky said the bodies of 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers will also be returned. Discussions reportedly included cases of abducted children. Ukraine's delegation, led by Rustem Umerov, proposed a direct summit between Presidents Zelensky and Putin by the end of August. However, Russia suggested forming online working groups on military, political, and humanitarian issues instead. The UN's top legal body, the International Court of Justice, has ruled that countries that fail to meet their climate commitments may be violating international law and could face paying reparations to countries suffering the consequences. In a unanimous advisory opinion delivered on Wednesday, the ICJ declared that wealthy and high-emitting nations are legally obliged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, curb fossil fuel production and subsidies, and establish ambitious climate plans linked to the Paris Agreement. Judge Yuji Iwasawa emphasized that a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a recognized human right, and that failure to take adequate climate action may amount to internationally wrongful conduct, leading to reparations for states harmed by climate impacts. The advisory is non-binding, but small island nations and low-lying states, as well as environmental groups, celebrated the landmark ruling. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also welcomed the decision, describing it as a victory for our planet. The UN World Food Programme announced on Wednesday that food and nutrition supplies in northeastern Nigeria have been completely depleted, putting 1.3 million people at risk by the end of July. The depletion is primarily due to significant funding shortfalls, largely resulting from major donor cuts, particularly from the U.S. Agency for International Development, which previously contributed approximately 45% of the region's budget. Over 150 nutrition clinics in Borno and Yobe states are also being closed, halting treatment for more than 300,000 malnourished children. The aid agency needs $131 million to restart operations in the region this year. Chongqing Zoo in China's southwest celebrated the third birthday of a pair of twin giant pandas this week. The twins, named Yuke, the brother, and Yui, the sister, were born on July 22, 2022. A special birthday party was designed to help them stay cool in the region's summer heat with frozen fruitcake sculptures, bamboo ice treats, and chilled play areas. While Yui was resting in a non-exhibition zone due to a mild eye condition, Chongqing Zoo officials stated that both pandas are thriving, healthy, and remain popular attractions. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Heatwave warnings have been further strengthened across the country. Heatwave warnings have been in effect in most parts today, with the top temperature in most regions rising to around 35 degrees Celsius. The heat wave will get worse and worse. The daytime temperature will soar to 37 degrees in Seoul tomorrow and 38 degrees on Saturday, which will be the hottest day this year, and the heat at night will get worse. You need to be extra careful not to get a heat-related illness under such hot conditions. Tomorrow's Seoul will start warm at 27 degrees, Busan and Jeju 26 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 35 degrees in Chuncheon and Daegu, 34 degrees in Gyeongju. For the time being, the whole country will be most clear, but there is rain forecast for Jeju Island only this weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching. Our panel session is coming up next, so do stay with us.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewer Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
준비하는 코딩 교육 전문가.
Change the way you start skincare. 7 vegan peptide, maximum benefits for your skin. And amplify the effect of the next skincare step. Boosting, glowing, and brightening. Effortless care. Visible results. 7 vegan peptide booster. Mizone.
On Press Perspective today, we touch upon the social issues related to South Korea, covered by the international media, ranging from reinstating Constitution Day as a public holiday to a growing travel trend here in the country. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Thursday, July 24th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. It's time for our weekly session on various social issues related to South Korea that made international headlines as well. For this, I have Rui Valdez with Spanish news agency EFE Spain here in the studio. Rui, welcome.
Happy to be here.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with the pundit's take on the day's discussion. Colin, it's great to have you here.
Glad to be here, Sonny.
Right, Colin, so South Korea celebrated Constitution Day, that is last Thursday, July 17th, and the president has spoken about reinstating this particular day as a public holiday. Now, back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, it was removed from the list of public holidays. Could you remind us about that and also about the implications of its reinstatement if it were to happen?
Right. The holidays gain and lose their status here in Korea. Constitution Day it's still a holiday, but it's not a holiday where you get the day off work. That's an important thing. And this is the big difference. There are holidays, and then there are holidays. There are red days where not that everybody is off of work for those days, but where many don't have to work as a matter of official policy. Now, Constitution Day is a holiday that wouldn't be well known among foreigners in Korea necessarily, but also maybe wouldn't be so well known among Koreans these days. There is a ceremony that goes on. There was this last Constitution Day as well. There was a ceremonial event, and it was an opportunity for Lee Jae-myung to position himself in a way in which we'll get to. But yes, the holiday was once a red day. It was an official public holiday. Lost that designation, as you say, in 2008, which was a few years, I believe, after Korea officially went down to a 5-day work week. And so the thinking, I believe, was, well, we have to sort of balance the scales here. If we're going down to a 5-day work week, then maybe we don't need so many holidays that are days off for people. You know, we've got to keep the time we're at work at least a little bit in balance. Now, that could have been one motivation, excuse me, for that, but as it's come down to us, this has not been a public holiday for about 20 years, now, less than 20 years now, but its status is, I don't know, we could put it in line with a holiday like Arbor Day in the United States, where people know about it, but it's not a day you get off, it's not a day where you sort of do anything in particular. Maybe you'll go out and plant a tree. In fact, Korea also has a day like Arbor Day, where you're supposed to plant trees, but that too it was once an official public holiday and then was delisted in, I believe, 2005. So as I say, this happens. The holidays get removed from the official list, put back on, sometimes removed again, as was the case with the Korean Arbor Day. But what does this say? You know, Constitution Day, It's, of course, a celebration of the constitution that underlies the Republic of Korea. It is a constitutional republic. But the lack, how to put it, the lack of seriousness with which the holiday is taken that got it removed from the list, it tells you something about how the republic itself is seen here in South Korea. I often reference Brian Myers' book, 사랑받지 못하는 공화국, The Unloved Republic. And his thesis is that the Korean public does not, its nationalism, which can be significant if you look at it in a certain way, is not about the republic. It is not about Daehanminguk, not about South Korea as a political entity. So somehow the republic itself is always, it always gets the short shrift. So you think of the other holidays that are public holidays. We have Foundation Day, we have Liberation Day, we have, what else is there? Hangul Day. I mean, we have a variety of days here celebrating things that came before the foundation of the Republic, sometimes millennia before. And you can see what's important there. You can see what's being emphasized is, well, we look at Foundation Day. It goes back to, I believe it's 2333 BC with the mythical Danguns founding Gojoseon, seen as the beginning of the Korean people. That's what's emphasized, the Korean people as a whole. That is the nationalism in effect here. And somehow it's never about the Republic because, as one person said to me here, you know, Korean history is a book this thick. And the Republic of Korea is this chapter. It's the very last chapter. And sometimes in a book like that, you don't get to the last chapter. You don't read the last chapter closely. So there's yet to be a real strong consciousness about the Republic itself, let alone the Constitution. And maybe Lee Jae-myung can change that. We'll see.
Right. And speaking about President Lee Jae-myung, this particular year, though, Constitution Day has been linked to last December's short-lived martial law. The president made a reference during his speech on July 17th last week to commemorate this particular day. Could you tell us a bit more about what he said?
Yes, as Colin was mentioning the historical background about all these holidays and how Koreans appreciate or not what is celebrating in these specific dates, there is a part, or some people believe that this in fact was also an opportunistic moment for President Lee Jae-myung to point out that even though, well, he firstly thanked the citizens for lawfully overcoming the political crisis sparked by the martial law in December. As we may remember, when former President Yoon Suk-yeol was ousted, was because the Constitutional Court stated that he, in fact, broke the Constitution in many ways. So this is why President Lee has this opportunity to link the importance of this day to what just happened last year. There is also an interesting part since President Lee became president. He does talk about the event of the martial law, or he calls it the national crisis that South Korea experienced, but he also tries not to reference Yoon by name a lot. And I think, well, this can be interpreted in many ways. One of them, as he would mention, or the people around he will mention, is a way to state that he's going to move forward, he's not going to look backward, and it's not time to get engaged in this type of disputes, at least publicly. But also, it could be a reflection of his confidence. Right now, his approval ratings are way high, above 60%, and the main opposition party is on record lows of 17%. So with all this context, taking into account that the Constitutional Court ruled Yoon's martial law as a grave constitutional violation, that Yoon deployed troops illegally, that he violated civil rights through the imposition of this martial law, President Lee takes the opportunity to put this holiday or potential holiday on the table and see how people react on it, and yeah, probably it will become this holiday. You know?
Right, so while the president has spoken about the possibility of reinstating Constitution Day here in Korea as a public holiday, over in France, Rui, a proposal to, I believe, abolish 2 public holidays appears to have paved the path to much public outrage in France. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, well, South Korea asked to revise this holiday for democracy. France wants to erase them for austerity. This can be interpreted also in different ways. It can be just a funny statement that creates some kind of controversy. Some will say it's an unnecessary political suicide by the Prime Minister François Bayrou, who made this statement. Also, it could be radical, but there are also some pundits that think this could be a distraction so that people focus on the discussion of these 2 holidays that are going to be scrapped, while other cuts from these austerity measures are being approved, and they are not getting the attention that probably they deserve. But let's explain it a little bit. So Prime Minister of France unveiled a 43.8 billion euros austerity plan, and he included in these plans was the elimination of these holidays. It's Easter Monday and May 8th, which is Victory Day, the Nazi Germany surrender in World War II. The justification behind it is that it was going to boost productivity to curb a debt that he says is increasing 5,000 euro per second. People in general didn't take this well. 75% of people in a survey made by BFM-TV said that they did not agree with this proposal. He got criticism from both left and far right, and many claim that if they remove May 8th, Victory Day, it was like erasing World War II memory amid rising extremism. So they say that, taking into account the context or the current context, it will be kind of ignoring some of the movements of extremist movements that are rising. No? Interestingly, or to be fair with the Prime Minister, this holiday in particular is not that popular around the world. Only other 2 countries celebrated, Czech Republic and Slovakia. And in other countries, they take other important dates related to World War II, but not necessarily this May 8th date. Regarding the Easter Monday, in France, that has a very high population that are atheists or without religion, he said that there's no religious meaning anymore to celebrate Easter Monday. But on the other side, this particular date, it is celebrated in other countries that also have big quantities of unreligious people or diversely religious people. Then the last point of this is that if this was this distraction or necessity, France right now has 11 national holidays. It's more or less the same of the European Union average. If you cut them down, it goes right below, far below, if you take it like in a percentage view, of the average. So this would make a lot of noise immediately when you make that comparison in public. Then will create these big reactions, and probably what some pundits says is that this was intended by the Prime Minister or the administration of Macron to create some kind of distraction and and so that people don't focus on other more important budget cuts.
I see. Right then. Well, France contemplates whether to remove or not to remove these 2 public holidays back within national borders. Colin, tweakment tourism, it's reportedly rising here in South Korea. For the sake of our viewers who may not be familiar with this particular jargon, could you start with a definition of what it means?
Yes, tweakment tourism is a fun word, a fun neologism. Tweak, as in making a tweak, say, to your face or to some part of your body, getting it tweaked under the knife or other tool of a cosmetic surgeon, and so treatment and tweak put together. Now, this is a form of medical tourism, as I think you said, and medical tourism has been going on for a while here in South Korea, in large part, but not entirely, in its world-famous cosmetic surgery sector. Now, a tweakment, if you're going in for a tweakment, you're going in for a procedure that doesn't quite meet it doesn't quite meet the level of a full cosmetic surgery. You're not getting your jaw reshaped. You're not getting, you think of the procedures we think of that are publicly associated with cosmetic surgery, getting work done. They can be pretty extreme, but these are just tweaks, as the word has it. And so you can come to South Korea for one tweak, but if you're flying from far away, that might not seem worth it. You want to get a bunch of tweaks. So you might get 5, 10, 15, 20 of these little tweaks. Maybe they're scraping something, maybe they're injecting something, maybe they're sucking something out, that level. You get a bunch of these tweaks in one day, and if you're an influencer, if you're big on social media, you might make a video about it. And so that is driving this in large, not in large part, but in part. Now, people from other Asian countries have been coming to Korea for a long time to get cosmetic surgery done, whether it's tweaks or something more major. But now you see influencers who, whatever ethnicity they might be, are based in other countries, based in the West, based outside of Asia. You know, you'll have Korean Americans, say, who do these videos. In the US, they say, oh, I flew back to Korea to see relatives, but I also got 20 procedures done in 3 days, something like that. So it makes for very compelling video content if you like that kind of thing. And so word spreads outside of the ethnic Korean world, outside of the US as well. It's becoming big in the UK. Also, there was an article in the Times of London recently about this. So the culture of tweakment is spreading. And like a lot of things that are popular, like a lot of elements of South Korean culture popular now, social media has a lot to do with it. But there are as well many tips that I think someone in search of tweakments would be well advised to take, such as, you know, there are different levels of cosmetic surgery here. There are different kinds of clinics. Some are more like factories, some are more boutique. And as several of these influencers have been quoted as saying in these articles, you know, get a cheaper hotel, spend more money on the surgery. Don't cheap out on the surgery to get a nicer hotel. Like if you're coming and you're going to do all this, you know, these are medical procedures. So you want to get to the highest standard you can possibly afford. And I think that's good advice. But this is a world that it has its own complexities, and the more research you do, the better if this is the kind of thing you like to do.
Right, and staying with K-beauty, if you will, Rui, consumers in the US are reportedly stocking up on Korean beauty products ahead of the looming 25% tariffs. What are the prospects of K-beauty exports as shared by pundits, Rui?
Right, well, first, the impression, as Colin was also mentioning regarding K-beauty, well, there's a lot of content in social media, and sometimes there can be an impression that the impact is higher than what it really is. But, well, being that said, the New York Times made an article where they integrated a lot of influencers with millions of followers, asking their followers to stock up all they could of K-beauty products so that they could avoid the rising prices that will come with the tariffs that will start, the reciprocal tariffs that the Trump administration applied that will start on August 1st. So yeah, there's clearly a trend that is of people if not themselves, also encouraging other people to do this stacking up of these beauty products. To put things in perspective, Korean cosmetic exports hit a record $5.5 billion in the first quarter of 2025. This is US billions, and which this means an increase of 15% comparing to last year. South Korea has become, last year, the main cosmetic exporter, cosmetic product exporter to the US, and is the third globally. So this is a major industry right now for South Korea, and it's also quite a concern if it ends up being integrated with these tariffs as they are right now, and we haven't get any updates that it will change. But still, the tariffs announcements have been made in different ways, in different tweakings, if you want to call them, changing in percentages and whatnot. But the attitude of U.S. companies that import these products seems to remain the same. They are still betting in K-beauty products. They say that in the side of Korean companies, they use a model of high margin profit that somehow protects them from the effect of these tariffs. And also, the belief of the US importers is that these products are not that elastic in the sense of economics. Like if the price rises, consumers don't react as quickly, or they don't reduce their consumption that fast. Colin was mentioning that happened too with the tweaking thing. Consumers have developed distrust in Korean beauty products, that they are willing to pay more in order to get them. Still, the difference between K-beauty products with, let's say, France or Germany is still quite high. So there's still a level that can rise and consumers will still accept it. So we can conclude that there seems to be a trend of stocking up these products, but also at the same time, the U.S. companies, the U.S. importers are not really changing their attitude yet.
Right, good to know, good to know. On a more solemn note, Colin, while recovery efforts here in the country from last week's torrential rain continue, another concern is the spread of disinformation about the tragic event through images generated by AI. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Yes, it sends my mind back to 2022. 3 years ago, we had even bigger rains, I believe, at that time, and there were floods in Seoul, and images were circulating that weren't fake, they were real. There was one particular photo of a man sitting on the hood of his car, surrounded by water. He couldn't go anywhere, and this was turned into a variety of fake movie posters, some of them fairly convincing. One of them called Gangnam-yok, or Gangnam Station, and it looked like, oh, this could be a disaster movie, like the actual photo was real, but the framing was parodic. So everybody sent those around in 2022. This year, it's quite different because you have, as you say, these engines, AI-powered engines that can generate out of whole cloth videos that take nothing from reality but look to some people convincing. So the video that everybody is talking about this time is a video of floods, but at Gyeongbokgung, at the Central Palace, where the palace is flooded with water, but also at some point you see a seal float by, which is, you'd think that would be the giveaway. But for a lot of people, it wasn't. And this has been, it's hard to say how many people are actually taking it seriously and how many not. But really, when you look at the material that's long been circulating on, say, Facebook, even before the age of convincing AI videos, you'd see some very unconvincing stuff, and some people would still circulate it as if it were real. Maybe they believed it, maybe not. Who knows? Kind of hard to be sure these days. So this is an era where it's more important than ever to consider the source, as the saying goes. And if you just see something circulating on social media, maybe don't take it at face value right away. And if you see a seal in a video about a flood in Gyeongbokgung, probably you can discount that material. But yes, I think whenever there's a public event now, because of social media culture, it's going to circulate as something. And so the higher technology we get, the more likely something fake could be convincing. And so the best we can do is to bear that in mind. Anything you see could be fake, and maybe it won't always be as obvious as the Gyeongbokgung video going forward.
Right, and Andrew, what countermeasures have been perhaps proposed to address the presence of such false images generated, of course, by AI? We have like about a minute left.
Yes, in next year, South Korea will implement a law that is the AI basic law that it covers many different things related to AI, but related to these fake videos or deep fake videos that we can talk in another show, they include watermarking of all generative AI content and transparency labels on AI-generated media in order to force the people or companies who produce these products to show consumers that this was generated by AI. Nonetheless, experts have many doubts that this is actually gonna work, because it's quite easy to take out these watermarks anyways, and people don't seem to care about regulations or telling the truth. As we may recall, just a few years ago, AI was starting, and yeah, maybe there was some funny videos you could tell, but besides the video with the seal, they're getting better and better. Still, maybe you can find some tricks, but in, I don't know, 2-3 years, it's going to be very hard to discern. So this is a really big concern for the country and the world.
Right. As you said, it's a universal concern as we speak. All right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have today. As always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, Sonia.
Colin, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right. That ends Press Perspective for today. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.
country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and...
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
Traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning